I mean, is this a done deal? And
We want to be part of our town. We want to have an input as to what is built in our town. This is our town. Okay?
Springs. There's no way it can be decided by anybody in this room here. We're told it's a challenge way beyond all of us that we have no right to take upon ourselves. It needs to be turned over to the people for a vote.
Is because Miami Springs is, and hopefully will still be for many years to come, the one place where we're going to feel comfortable to let our kids still run in our bicycles, to let our kids go to the rec center by themselves.
so, as a homeowner, I would hope that you guys could go back and rescind your decision over the summer and then allow us to make the decision as to whether or not we want that 3-floor building downtown. Thank you.
Do the right thing and roll back the gateway provisions that allow the increase in residential units and any decreases in parking requirements, and halt the advancement of the new ordinance that lowers square footage requirements. Then do an honest and thorough educational process for the residents and let the people decide by an official vote. Anything less is a continued violation of our trust and neglects knowing the true will of the people. Thank you.
Because I heard other people talk about mixed use, and yeah, it does work sometimes, and it doesn't other times, and that Hialeah example was dead on.
This is the case. So I would suggest amending the ordinance so that the minimum unit size remain at 900 square feet. However, if property owners wish to avail themselves of the 800 square feet average and 700 square feet minimums, they should be required to incorporate amenities such as balconies and washers and dryers in each unit, and then dedicate a certain percentage of the floor, say 5 or 10% of the building, for shared amenities such as pool, office center, club room, gym for residents, rooftops. I've seen trends of young professionals and retired people moving into smaller units that provided such amenities in those buildings. Office centers are especially important due to the changing economy, since many people are working remotely. This will ensure that the building is of good quality and brings residents that have the incomes to support the businesses in the vicinity. With good planning, this can breathe some life into our town center and foster the small town feel and sense of place. I would love not to have to leave Miami Springs whenever I want to hang out in a nice place, and I urge you to support making this happen with some extra safeguards that I suggested. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not opposed to redevelopment, revitalizing the downtown area. It needs it desperately. However, what is being proposed does not improve the quality of life here. On the contrary, more traffic congestion to an already overcrowded circle. It will open the door to more development, higher density.
There's a common theme that I'm hearing. One is that we love our community. Another is that it's a low-density community. By adding these kinds of residential units to the circle, it'll forever change the character of the city that we call home.
It's going to impact people well beyond the confines of this room. Hundreds, thousands of people are going to be impacted by the decisions to redevelop this property. I want to say to you, I want to request of you, if the city of Miami can put up the redevelopment of the Miller Reese parcel of land to the people of Miami, we can put up this to a vote of the people of the city of Miami Springs.
I do share some of the concerns that have been stated regarding the quality of the housing, even though I don't think someone is going to pay $4.6 million to develop substandard units or Section 8 housing. It doesn't make financial sense. There are a lot of apartment buildings in the Springs, and they range from efficiencies to just okay. My grandparents that lived in VG, my wife's, not mine, I'm a Springs guy, wanted to downsize, and they couldn't find a decent apartment in the area, so they moved to Kendall. I have many friends that grew up with me in the Springs, and their only option to remain in the area is to live with their parents. So in order for this to be successful, the housing units need to be of good quality that would cater to those wanting to downsize and young professionals. The city should incorporate safeguards into the ordinance to ensure that this is the case.
But at the end, you guys do have to understand that the people that live here are the ones that voted for you guys. The people that live here are the ones that paid the taxes to continue to keep the city alive and not have to sell our city to every other monster of a city that lives right around us. Now, but I'm also smart enough to understand that 20 single bedroom apartments doesn't equal to 20 cars, because in most single apartments, 2 people live in that. It's true. So, am I opposed to moving forward and making the city better? No. It is the one thing that I believe that we should do. We should also do it cautiously. We should also do it. Make sure that the amount of parking spaces that you're going to create in this development equals to the amount of people that are going to live there at a higher number, and also the amount of people that are going to visit.
Drive, I do support this project. And let me tell you, it will benefit Miami Springs. I love to eat, so having a little bit more restaurants, it will be really good. Thank you.
So now you're adding 104 cars to that one area. And as the gentleman before said, that's without guest. I'm baffled.
And so we moved to Miami Springs. And we moved here because this place is not congested. It's not Doral, it's not Hialeah, it's not, God forbid, Brickell. It's Miami Springs. It's really the only place like that in Dade County. You can move to Broward County and find places like that, or up even further north, Sebring. I'm getting to the retirement age, and I'm thinking about, that kind of stuff. But right now, I love Miami Springs, and I love it because it's small, and it's quiet, and it's peaceful, and as long as I stay off Ludlam, Curtis Parkway, and South Drive, I'm pretty good with traffic. I ride my bike all over the place. There's hardly any cars at all. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. And I pay taxes. I pay higher taxes here than I did in those other places. And I hope those taxes help to keep this place quiet. I don't need big buildings. I don't want big buildings.
I believe you guys should rescind that decision you guys made over the summer. Elections are going to be coming up in a year's time, and you all come knocking on my door, asking for money and asking for my vote and asking for my husband's vote, and you all get people to come out and line up Westward Drive with signs with your names on it, all to vote for you guys. Yet, no one came to the neighborhood to knock on anybody's door. Nobody sent any letters like you used to do way back in the day when important decisions were to be made to get more people to these meetings.
One, I've heard that we need to compete with Coral Gables. We need to compete with Kendall, Brickell, downtown. We need to be a destination spot. But I didn't choose to live in Miami Springs to live in a destination spot. We live here to be a part of a community. I mean, it's quiet, it's friendly, we have a lot of good neighbors, and it's safe. And so the fact that we got to make it easier for developers to make more profit, to make it a destination spot, I don't think anyone in this room wants it. And I think most of Miami Springs doesn't want it.
I would urge you to deny the ordinance request that's pending before you. I would also urge you to repeal the ordinance that was passed in the summer and put it to a vote to the residents of Miami Springs.
I think we have to proceed with caution, and whatever is proposed by the developer should be up to a vote, especially if there is an ordinance change along with that. Because it is a private land, and it's up to him to do what he chooses. However, the code is the resident's choice.
I'm kind of hearing, though, is everyone's saying that they want to decide what to do with this property, but it's a private property. And my home, personally, if I'm following all the laws and all the codes and everything, I don't want anyone telling me what I can do with my property. I think that this has already passed and everything is done. I think that our focus should be on making this as conducive to the environment as possible. I think that, the city does need life. I personally, like my brother and like my family and my friends, none of us want to leave this town, but come Friday night and you want to have dinner somewhere, you want to hang out, there aren't really places to do that. And I think that if we can work on this, what's already done, what's already owned by these private developers, with everybody input, like everyone's input, that it could be a positive change for the community, because it's going to happen either way. So I just think that that should be the focus of it.
If you want to make the city a little bit better, why don't we look at renovating what we already have? Because we have a lot of things here. I don't think that just putting a bunch of new stores is not a guarantee that they're going to stay and that it's going to help us. I also agree with the traffic will become a nightmare.
First thing I want to say is I support the ordinance. I think that Miami Springs lacks an identity, especially the downtown area. And I think a development like that will bring an identity to the downtown area. I think that the residents that would occupy those spaces, they would support not only the businesses under there, but the surrounding businesses in the area, because like the gentleman said, 2 people per one bedroom unit, a 700 square foot unit, that's a big one bedroom. If any of us have ever lived in an apartment, 700 square feet is a big, but 2 people in, let's say, 50 apartments, if that's the number they're shooting for, that's 100 people that would affect all these businesses. And that's foot traffic that the businesses currently do not have. And in reference to traffic, guys, let's be honest. What do we got? 2-3 hours of traffic a day, if that, and they're only during certain periods of the day. Anything that we do there is better than what we have. It's a it's a building that's falling apart. It's in the back, brings us no real tax revenue that a new building would bring us.
We decided to move here because it was different. We pay high taxes, me and my husband, and we have a little kid. He's a year old. And we moved here because we saw the kids actually playing on the streets, and you see like the 4th of July parade, this past weekend, the Christmas parade and everything else. I would like to have a voice on actually my investment, because I invest in this city. I shop here, I go to the gym here. I try to do everything here in Miami Springs. So I would like to know if there is a chance for us to vote.
But to tell you the truth, to all the commercial people out there that have businesses, doesn't make a difference. Mixed use is not proven to make any more money than in strip malls. We have actually a lot of great commercial properties that are in strip malls that make good money, better than some of the commercial use. So that really doesn't make a difference. What does make a difference is how unique you are to the market. And let me ask you a question. Hialeah Drive, 2nd Avenue, right next to Publix. Drive down, that's mixed use. They're empty. Exactly. They're empty. So mixed use does not guarantee us more money, does not guarantee more tax revenue. And for those of you who say, well, this is already done, guess what? You guys are the ones that are paying your taxes, and you guys should have that say. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My input is that this is a done deal. Nobody's going to pay $4 million for the property if everything was settled, because people don't have that kind of money to be wasting unless they'd already talked to the politicians and everything settled. So since I think it's really like sort of a waste for us to be complaining about it, how about this idea? So when you have rentals, people do not really care about the property. Sometimes they vandalize it, they come and go. So they're not really like part of Miami Springs. Why not turn this project into luxury condominiums? So people are resident, they pay taxes, because if you have a rental property, the owner pays just a flat fee. So if you have condominiums, we're going to get more revenues, and we're going to have people who really care for the community, who are going to be going downstairs to the restaurants.
When we were having the issue with the pool and the rec, and that we were not, it wasn't going to affect our residents, it was going to impact us, it was going to be better. Living right there on Chippewa Street, we have parking issue that the police department cannot control. My grandkids, I pay the membership for them to be able to go to the pool, and they can't go to the pool because it's full of everybody else but Miami Springs residents. So if we're going to have a building where we're going to have rentals, they're going to take upon our city, which is our taxes, and we will not be able to use it. Parking is horrendous. The poor city of Miami Springs, they probably already know me because I'm calling all the time. They're parking on my swale. They mess up my landscaping. We can't use the pool. I want to take the kids to the rec. And so I feel that if we're having, I think the gentleman made a good decision for them to be condos, for them to be owners of Miami Springs and to take pride into Miami Springs, as we all want to. That's why we all moved here. I didn't want to live in Coral Gables. I didn't want to live in Coco Plum. I wanted to live in a small little area where my kids can ride their bikes on the street. So please, maybe you can take that into consideration when making this decision, that the pool and the rec kind of backfired with the parking and with the influx of people that are not Miami Springs resident benefiting from that our taxpayers are paying, and we can benefit from it. All right?
I've known the ups and the downs, the pool, the parks, everything, the bicycle, everything, the Ludlum, the train, you know, that area back there, all those issues I've been privy to. But we do need to look at what we're going to do and go slow with it, because we do want to keep it a small community. Thank you.
I love coming back to my city from a Friday night. I love coming back to my suburban area where everything's quiet. I love coming down to my quaint area where everything's quaint and quiet. I enjoy it very much, and I feel like things can be renovated. I feel like there doesn't need to be this vast difference. I can go to Doral if I want to go out. I can go to Dolphin Mall if I want to go see a movie. I can go to Doral if I want to go to Panera Bread. Like there isn't something that I can't do that isn't within reach. And so I feel like this vast difference and this big change isn't something that Miami Springs is ready for, and it's not something that your constituency wants. It's very evident that your constituency doesn't want this. So I feel like, as the pool was, there wasn't a vote on it. Nobody, everybody I talk to, every teenager I talk to doesn't enjoy the pool that it is now. Your constituency doesn't agree with what wasn't voted on, and it's not going to agree with what's going to get voted on now.
It's pretty late in the day. I haven't seen my son all day. I have a 2-year-old. And when he's asking me, Dad, where were you? I'm like, I was fighting for you here, for your future, so you can have a nice environment in this area. And that's what we want to keep.
Right now, Wynwood's the hot place to be. Everybody wants to be in Wynwood. Look, it's all mixed space, great restaurants. Well, 10 years ago, that was South Miami. And before that, it was Coconut Grove. And at the end of the day, what you have is a trail of abandoned, not cool anymore places. But the residents have to continue. The residents have to continue living here. They have to keep paying taxes here. They have to keep raising their children and hoping that they'll enjoy the area.
I've been a Hialeah police officer for 16 years in the southeast side right here. The mixed-use area what they talk about is empty. The apartments create calls for the police. But we have to slow down. We already have restaurants and businesses there. Now we're going to kick them out to put more, different ones. What's wrong with the ones we have? Why can't they're doing fine. Burritoville, he's going to get kicked out for another restaurant? Or they're going to raise his rent when they redo it? He can't afford to go back there? Sabor's, the sushi restaurant got kicked out. Ray's Taekwondo, that building's for sale now. They're going to build an apartment building there. And what nobody said anything. Are they going to build an apartment building at where Washington's gym is? Where's that parking going to go? And those people. So now you're adding another, let's say 30 condos on the one side of Hook Square, another 30 on the other. That's 60 condos, 2 cars, if more. I work in Hialeah. All the apartment buildings they built over in the southeast side right there with the mixed use underneath, the cars park on the street now because there's no parking. The designated parking is full. So now they're blocking the middle of the street because they have no place to park from the overflow because there's more than 2 cars per resident. So, I mean, 780 square feet is nothing. And in Hialeah, they have 6 people living in a 780 square foot apartment. I know. They have people living in motorhomes in Hialeah now. They get campers and they live in campers on the side of the property. So I know how many people they can put in 780 square feet, and they can put a lot more than 2 people. Are we going to regulate that? How can we? We can't. You're going to tell people how many people can live there? No. So you're going to keep adding cars.
Is whatever Mr. Espino said in his 1 hour oral that he's been dealing with all these developers, and now he wants to write ordinances around what they want before they buy the property. This is crazy. You're supposed to make the rules, and the people that are buying the property are supposed to be the ones who are coming here and asking for variances, which you don't seem to like anymore, but just change the ordinance. It's easier. But I'm going to ask that you table this, because this is out of hand, what he went over tonight. How many different properties that I'm assuming he's putting into this ordinance now to benefit certain people? This is wrong. And we know that there's no transparency.
But this ordinance is going to make Miami Springs worse. Parking has been a problem for the last 10 or 15 years. And now you're going to do backflips for a developer and let him do less parking and give him more FAR, 1.7 in the gateway. And you're increasing the density, the traffic. How about water and sewer, electric, all of those infrastructures that should be here? How about boulevards or widening the streets? We can't do anything about Curtis Parkway or the bridges or East Drive or Royal Poinciana. Those streets belong to the county. They don't belong to us. So you need to do a little more work. I agree that maybe it should be tabled.
And want to live in this city. And I don't want to wait till I'm 50 to move to this city. I want to be able to move to this city at my age, going to school and getting an education, and I want to and be able to live in the city. And that's one of the biggest things that this is going to do. This is not rental apartments. These apartments are going to go for sale.
I think the only question here, like they say, this gentleman bought the property. He can build a mixed-use property. We want to try to put things into this to make it a nice place.
But now, I feel that any change that happens here should be controlled by the community. That's it.
Bottom line is, at the end of the day, I support the city staff on this issue, and I'd like to see the ordinance passed.
Thank you. I would propose that it should be a 900 square foot average. And see.
Motion to approve 800 minimum, 900 average.
I'll second that.
Call a vote.
Vice Mayor Petrolanda?
Yes.
Councilman Best?
Aye.
Councilwoman Mitchell?
No.
Councilwoman Zapata?
Yes.
Mayor Bain?
Yes. All right.
And I would like to add that the developer pay impact fees to the county with a request from our district's commissioner to be used to enhance access to this new area.
I worked this out with Chris, and my understanding is that this change would allow 10 to 15% more units at that property, if we're talking about the Washington Gym property. Currently, about 9 units at 900 square feet, which, so some units will be 800. So then with 3C, right, but still with 3C, this would allow 19 units.
But that's why, Councilwoman, if I may.
And then
Discussing about this in terms of units is a difficult proposition.
I understand,
because we have to talk about it in terms of FAR, which is just volume of residential. Because at the end of the day, once you can get a gross number and say, with this amount of FAR, I can build this many units. But at the end of the day, that building still has to be serviced by elevator shafts, stairwells, points of ingress, egress, and all that does is to essentially take buildable area away from what would be considered a unit. And so when you talk about just gross square footage, then essentially you have to, it's impossible to have a unit count with it. You can say 15,000 square feet, you know, if I eliminated this, I can do 10,000 square feet of retail on the first floor, 15 and 15. You now know that you have a net $10,000 difference, 10,000 square foot difference between the retail and the residential, but you don't know what that residential is going to be turned into because we don't know what how to chop it up.
And I think that's the issue, is we don't know how these things will turn out, and that's why we're allowing a lot more flexibility. We already have the Gateway Overlay District, which allows them a lot of flexibility in how they want to increase it, and now we're chipping away at it again. So I think this issue should be a variance, individual variance by, by a property, because exactly what you said, Dan, that there's no way to really know. And the properties are different shaped, and if we're going to change this ratio, it should be a variance specific to that property that they ask for a variance,
Councilman,
instead of across the board.
The only
All right.
Now, Dan, does this mean that then, if the ratio's not there, then they could just do units and no commercial on the bottom?
No, 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 no.
They still have to do
No.
commercial.
They still have to have commercial.
Yeah.
Yes,
no matter what.
absolutely. This, all this, essentially what it would, this ratio ties, and it would still be applicable to the rest of the central business district, because we say you have to have commercial on the first floor, then it simply just allows somebody to build commercial, office, commercial, office, residential, commercial, residential, residential. It simply allows the rest of the code to guide the development of the project. On top of that, recall that there are, in the central business district overall, there are minimum amounts of retail that has to be built. But then again, let's use a theater property, for example. They have said to us, we don't have plans in front of us, they have said to us that they intend on having a building that wraps around the block, retail all around the first floor, and residential on top with a parking garage in the middle.
And
Again,
that
we don't
will
have
be
plans, it's
recessed.
not a site plan. Recessed first floor. Well, in order to do that, they have to have retail wrapping all around that building. So they're going to exceed the requirements of the central business district already, given the footprint of the building. All they're saying is they're just going to stack residential on top of it, and then obviously taking into account the recessed component of it.
But this is like really, I think should be a concern to us, because we just recently voted in July to require certain things. One of them is a colonnade, which, is something that would be a feature to make it more of a promenade, a more walkable area and all this. But now all of a sudden, these changes that we made in July, people can't comply with what's in our code. So, have we really thought this out?
Well,
Because what else is going to come up that all of a sudden, changes that we made in July, our code doesn't allow them to build in 5 months?
Right, in 5 months,
and
it's
it
not
isn't-
bad.
It isn't going to change what we decided in terms of the overlay. So we're going to keep the aesthetics of what we wanted it to look like.
Absolutely.
That's fine.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It just allows more units.
Not necessarily. I don't think
Chris,
you should make them statements.
could you come up, because we're looking at a second and third floor that are gonna be the same size. So how does the councilwoman believe that you can get 10 extra units
9.
or 9 extra
We
units?
figured it out. I sat with Chris today and we figured it out.
But that was based on the old minimum.
It probably would result in some extra units.
No, an extra residential square footage.
Hey.
Right. I know, but I'm just like, if we're gonna just
trying to
try
keep-
and
you're trying to
try to
keep
keep
it
the vocabulary the same.
Okay, but if we have if you can build a minimum number of units, a certain 800 square feet now or whatever, then obviously you've got more space to build more units.
Agreed. You have more residential square footage.
Right.
Whether that person decides to make that into 2 units, 1 unit, 3 units.
Exactly.
Right. That's the number. I know, and I just want to be clear to
But
everybody.
ultimately, Dan, what I'm trying to say is there is the ability to build more units. That's the basic.
I disagree.
That's not, correct me, that is a true statement.
Correct. It's relatively minor, but it is correct. But keep in mind, it doesn't change the FAR, and it doesn't change the size of the building or the massing of the building.
Right.
All that stays. Or the height.
I understand. I think just something that's been raised consistently is how many units, and that's obviously a concern with the residents, with all of us, is, how many units we're talking about on each of these properties.
I'd like to go ahead and, I don't know how to say it without putting it in the ordinance, but let it lay right now until second reading, so I can understand more what's going on here. This is different to me. I don't understand this whole situation. So maybe we can just do it before second reading. Do you need it to be within the code now? So we can go over this internally a little more?
Fine.
Okay? All right, so that's it?
I think so.
So I want to ask number one, does it matter what we're saying to all of you?